All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our webinar. Welcome everyone. And today we are going to be doing our webinar on basic custom reports and pivot tables. And I apologize, my name is Sheree, I'm account manager here. So hopefully all of you guys can see the help guide. This is it's pretty much a great resource for you guys to be able to use, especially when you're creating your custom reports. We do have quite a lot of options in here that you'll be able to use if you guys haven't already seen them already. Also in our help guide, we do have past webinars for this same session. So you guys can listen to those other ones as well. Okay, so I'm just going to come in here. We're going to type in custom report. And we have custom reports overview here. So I recommend you guys starting here, over here to the right-hand side. These are going to be some other links that you guys are going to definitely want to go into. So we have the new custom reports, which is one that you'll go into. The advanced custom reporting, this is going to contain all of your simple calculations. This is a little bit more advanced. So for those of you who want to go a little step further, then you can use these. We also have our pivot table report, which I will also be covering today in our session. I will be showing you 3 different types of reports with the pivot tables. And then of course, I'm going to show you how you can actually import, which is this last one here. I don't know if you guys have seen this. And if you go to pre-made custom reports, these are also, you can just download these as a CSV. You can upload them into your system and then they're already created for you. Some of them are simple, but again, these are for you guys to be able to use yourself without having to create them from scratch. Now, I will show you, like I said, a few pivot tables, and then one I will show you how to create one from scratch. So this is a great resource. And I do want to mention, a lot of people don't realize this, but we provide this as a courtesy to our clients, and we don't typically create reports for everyone or for anyone really. We're more than happy to help start one for you. We're able to direct you to the right data set. We're going to help you with your calculations. So again, if there's a report that you want, start creating it. If you need some help, send it to us, and then we're more than happy to help you. Okay. All right, hopefully there's no questions in regards to the help guide and what I've covered. So let's go into our system, and we're going to take care of some system setup and some security rights. So you're going to go into admin manager. And for those of you who don't have this button, then most likely you'll have to contact your system admin for them to be able to set it up for you. Okay, so admin manager, system setup. And then we're under account information, and then we're going to go into security settings. So here you're going to figure out which security group. We'll just pretend here that my project managers need to create custom reports. So then I'm just going to type in the word custom. Once I do that, it's going to narrow down those security rights. And then here's design custom reports and run custom reports. You do have edit custom listings that you can also give them. And also if you click on them, they will give you a little bit of a description underneath each one of them. So again, if you're not exactly sure, open it up. It should give you a description. There may be a few that don't, but for the most part they do. Okay, so very simple rights for this. But the next thing that we want to look at are the data sets for the custom reports. So you're going to click into the pencil. Over here to the right hand side, these are going to be all the data sets that you guys can give to your users. It's very easy to turn on. You're going to just click visible. Oops, sorry about that. Visible. And then of course you would just come down, look through all of the different data sets, decide which ones you want to give that security group. Then of course, if you don't want them to have it, you just click hidden, and of course they're no longer available for them to use. Now, I did want to bring to your attention, we do have some, oh, here it is, that's called LaborNet. So if you don't want your employees to have LaborNet information, then just make sure you don't give them that data set. I will show you a few reports that they'll have multiple different data sets, but they'll be adjusted just slightly. But again, you guys are going to need to decide what data sets you want to give to those security groups. Okay, and that's it for security rights and data sets. The next thing that I wanted to show you were your report groups. You guys can set up different groupings for your reports. So same area, system setup, but now we're going to go into global lists and we're going to go into our report groups right here. Okay, so here are the general ones. Then you can create your, like I created one that had calculated column reports. So it has all of my reports that have calculated columns in them. It's easy for me to identify. And of course, you guys can rename these, create as many as you want, and then you can use these when you go to create new reports and just put them into those different grouping options. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to show you how to create custom reports with our listing screens, which means they're going to be underneath your views, which is your magnifying glass here. And we're going to go into views. Now, all of these reports here or listing screens, you can create custom reports from these. And I'm going to show you how to copy one, how you can adjust it. Again, if you want to start from scratch, it might be a little difficult here because again, these are already created for you, but it's not to say that you couldn't copy it and then modify it at that point. Okay, let's go. I wanted to show you how to favorite something. So if you'll notice I have my favorites up here. If you hover over it, you're going to see a star. If you click the star, then it adds it to your favorites. Now, one thing about the favorite tab or the favorite header here, the only way it shows up is if you actually favorite something. So if you don't see it right now, it's because you haven't favorited a report for it to show up under. Okay. All right. The first report, I wanted to show you a high level report and a detailed report. So I've created these ahead of time, but I will go into explanation on how they work and how they're a little bit different. Okay. So let's click into this first one. This is going to be my high level report. And right now I have everything collapsed. You can see everything on one row. I can see my client name, my budgeted hours, my actual hours. And I created a calculated column called remaining hours, which I will also show you how to do. Okay, so if you click into the modify button, there is this auto expand groups together. So right now it is not check marked, so it's allowing everything to collapse. If you're one of those people that don't like to click, then you can go ahead and hit that auto expand, apply changes, hit search. And then of course, when you come back out, let me come memorize this really quick. Oops. There you go. So here, once I've created that or selected that option, then you're going to notice now that everything is opened. But the other thing I want you to notice is look at all of these project types. Each project type, they're not grouped together and they're just in a random order. So this tends to be a little bit of a limitation with the listing screens. But if you use our custom report data sets, then that's going to be, we can change that a little bit. Okay, so let's go in. I wanted to show you a calculated column. Here's a calculated column that I created, and I'm using this one. I'll show you in just a second. So here, if you click into the little calculator icon, this is going to show you the back-end setup of that calculation. And I'm going to show you how I created this in just a second. All right. The other thing I do want to mention, we get asked a lot if we have calculated cheat sheets. We don't. So I do recommend that if we've done a few of your custom reports for you, then it's probably a good idea that you guys build your own. You can go in there, copy those formulas out or those calculations, and then you can create your own little cheat sheet. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to show you how I quickly did that. The caption is what you're going to see from the front end. The data type for this one is actually going to be, well, actually in this one, it's going to stay number. Apologize. So here we want to go in and we want to pull in our budgeted hours. Here we go. So here I have my current budget hours. Oops, excuse me, having technical difficulties here. Once you do that, you're going to do a space dash space, which is going to signify that negative. And then I'm going to come in here and change it to actual hours. So these are all the available fields that you can use. Okay, there we go. Now, when you add your second field, it does automatically put in that little plus sign. So you're going to have to make sure that you delete that. Okay. And then of course, kind of bring it in a little bit. So that's it. It does simple calculations here. I can do, you're going to want to definitely subtotal it. And then you're going to go ahead and save. And that's it. That's a calculated column, very easy, very simple. You guys can play around with it depending on, what fields you want to use. And then of course, if that's something that you no longer want, then you can go ahead and just hover over the line and just delete it. All right, so that's just a simple way to do a calculated column, and that's it. Okay, so let's move on to our next report. So that's just a high level report. The other one I wanted to show you is a more detailed report. And this one is actually using the transactions listing screen. And I just created this and just modified it. Now, let's go in and I added my client here. It looks like it's already populated. Now, what this one is going to show, it's going to show every time entry on every line. So if I go ahead and hit search, you're going to notice all of my grouping options. So everything in bolded is a grouping option that I set up on the back end. But you're also going to be able to see that I have all of these individual time entries. But the one thing that most people don't like about it is I'm having every single line with the time entry, even though it's going to the same task. I can see my subtotal here, but most of the time you would want that rolled up. So this tends to be a limitation on using these types of reports. Okay, so let's go take a look. We're going to modify. Oops. So here are those three grouping options that I just showed you. The other thing I wanted to show you too is this transaction description. You'll notice that if you look at my report, it is giving me my username, whereas in here, it is actually called transaction description. So I typically recommend, if you don't know what the field is, pull them all out. Pull out a few of them, run the report, see what information is pulling up. Then you can come down here and change the captions. You'll notice that the field was called transaction date, but I just modified it and did date. So this is where you can click into the line, change the caption. You can do sorting, ascending, descending. You have all of those options here if you'd like. So again, that would be just one way that you guys could use this. And again, just pull out as many fields as you want, then just rename them so that that makes sense when you guys are running the report. Okay. And I will answer some questions as we go along. We've got a lot to cover. So I'll give a stopping point and then I'll answer your questions when we transition from the listing screens to the actual custom data sets. Okay. So just bear with me, hold your questions, and I'll be with you in just a minute. All right. So let's go in and let's go ahead and create a new report for you. So here I have this active projects list. I'm going to come over here to modify more. Oops. We're going to copy the view and say yes. And you'll notice now that I'm working with the copy of active projects. So here's when I like to go ahead and apply changes and memorize so that I don't lose that spot, right? So now I can go into modify again, and we're going to go into the settings tab. This is what I like to work from right to left, because here, this is where you're going to definitely want to change the name of the report. Oops. And let's just call this not creative with the report name. You can put report descriptions down here if you'd like to give an idea of what that report is. But what I wanted to bring to your attention is over here to the right-hand side. So when you create a custom report or a new report, it is going to assume that it's a private report, meaning it is only for you, and not even somebody with administrator rights would even be able to access it. So the idea is that you would uncheck the private box. You would then come in here and add all of the security groups that have rights to be able to use this. So again, you're picking and choosing who has rights to run it. If you're wondering, okay, well, who's in that security group? You can click into the name of the security group and it'll give you the list of names. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you is you can also check mark run this view when it's opened. For those of you who don't like to click the search box when you first open up a report, then you can go ahead and just click this and it's going to run every single time you open up that report. So you don't have to click the search option. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to apply changes again and I'm going to memorize. You'll notice now that my report has been changed to the new name. Now let's go talk about filters. There are regular filters that you can set up from the front end so that you're allowing your users to be able to pick their options. The other options are what we call hard coded, and those are these here. So you can see that in this report, I'm saying I only want to see active projects and that's it. I don't want to give my user the right to toggle between, active and non-active. So that's an example of a hard code. The other one is let's do project status. If we change this project status to any of, I can also hard code this. Maybe, and I would uncheck the prompt. I would come in here, click the caret. I would say, well, we only want to see projects that are in production. And then hit done, apply changes, hit search, come into my 3 lines. And then, of course, now what I'm seeing is just, I apologize, you didn't need to go into the filter. So now what I'm seeing are just my project statuses in production. So that's one way to hard code something. If you want to give the ability to pick and choose, then a good one again is still using the any of, but then what you're going to do is you're going to say prompt for values. Now this will be the difference between these two. So apply changes, search, those 3 lines, and then here's those statuses. And now my user has the ability to pick more than one, right? I'm selecting them, I'm hitting done, I hit search. And now I've just changed what I'm looking at. Okay. So again, you guys are going to select, your filters on how you want it to run. All right. And let's go into another filter. Date ranges, I think, are important. For date ranges, I recommend that you use the condition between. That way it gives the people the ability to be able to, pick their date range if they need to. If you want to hard code this, we have other options. So I can click in here, click the drop down, and I can say, well, I'm going to hard code it so that this report will only run for, this month or last month or year to date. So then that report will always run that same way all the time without somebody being able to click a date. All right. So again, these are just examples that you can use for the different types of conditions with the filters. All right. All right. And let's do this. Let me go to the layout here. The other thing I wanted to show you too is these locked columns. So I've got a lot of fields on my report here, and maybe I don't want to lose sight of the project number. So this is kind of like how you freeze the pane. So in an Excel, so this is kind of the same idea. I'm going to say, well, I want to lock my project number. I'm going to apply changes. I'm going to hit search. And then now on my scroll bar, oops, let's see if we can get this to move. Goodness, sorry. There we go. It's a little slow here, sorry. So as you notice, those project numbers aren't moving, but yet I'm still able to see all of the additional fields to the right. Okay, so again, these are just things that you guys can use if you want. You don't have to use these. Just I'm showing you different options that you have here. Okay. All right. And of course, if you guys later on decide, well, I don't want this report anymore, you're going to simply come into the more or edit, and then you can delete this view. We will always ask you, yes, are you sure you want to delete? Make absolutely positive that you want to delete it, because once it is deleted, it is permanently gone. We do not have an undo button. So always kind of keep that in mind when you're deleting things, or at least giving people permission to delete. Okay. So this is a good stopping point. I'm gonna, if you guys have any questions, I'll go ahead and answer a few of those. Let's see, you lost me at the views because I don't have any reports. Are yours set up for demo? You should have access to the, views here. If you don't, everyone should see a views when they click into the magnifying glass. So these here I created ahead of time, but yours should look like this. You should see all of these listed here, and if you click into each of them, if you have rights to these reports, then you'll be able to click them and run them. If you don't have rights to them, then you're going to receive a message that says access denied. Okay, so if you're not seeing these, then I would talk to your system admin, because everyone should have these here. Okay. Will you be given access to this recording after this? Yes, we always post our recordings in the help guide. I would say, I don't know, 2 to 3 days after we've ran it. So just check back in the help guide and it should be there. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, then let's go ahead and go into the report center. So you're going to go into Workamajig, or the little jiggy face. You're going to click into everyone, report center. Now, again, these are also security group driven. So if you don't have access to that report center, then you need to ask your admin to set it up. Okay. When you come in here, I did the same thing as I did with these views over here. I created my favorites. So you can kind of do the same thing. You just click the stars and it's going to create a favorites tab for you. And then these, you can just, it's a way for you to come to these most often and not have to search through a whole bunch of different tabs trying to find your favorite report. Okay. Now, when you click into the new custom report, these are all the data sets that you have the ability to create custom reports for. Okay. I'm going to show you 2 different types of reports, because we have high level reports. A good example of a high level would be project summary. And you'll notice here, we have 3 different types. So again, we have descriptions here. Look at the descriptions to make sure that it's what you want to use. And then of course, this one just has a billing schedule and this one has a team. So again, if there's information that you need with a team, then of course you would pick this one. And like I said, this is a high level report. Another one is company level. Here, down here on the bottom. So this one here is going to mirror that company's listing screen under the views. So, but of course, the data sets tend to give you a little bit more flexibility on how you want to see the data, how you want to roll it up. So like I said, just come in here, check out these reports. Another report for detailed level reports, a good one is project, let's see, project items. Excuse me, is it showing up? Items here, project items and services. This is a detailed report, which is going to give you down to the item and transaction level. Okay. And I'm going to show you examples of these. I know we always get asked what kind of data sets. So I'm giving you those here. Time detailed data is a very popular one. We have some with no cost. I would say for the most part, most people use this one, but here's that labor net I was telling you about. So be very careful of who you give access to if you don't want them to see the labor net. All right. So those are 2 examples. The other one is project cost transaction. And we have 3 of these as well. And you'll notice that we even have one with labor net again. So again, this one's including open orders. This one is not. So this one also tends to be a detailed report. All right. Okay, moving on. So the first one I wanted to show you was this project type by count. And this one is what I consider a high level report. I am using that project's listing or the project summary, which is going to mirror that listing screen. And you'll notice I have the same fields. There is going to be a little difference between this one, and I'm going to open this up. And you'll now notice that I have the ability to count all of my project types. So I'm not seeing 4 rows of brochure collateral. I can just see the number and know how many project types of each that I have. All right. And the field that controls also the roll up of this or the grouping options, you're going to edit, and it's called group rows together. When you check mark this, it then pulls in your grouping functions. So this is where you can click in, you can click the drop down, you can sum things, average. So these are all the different functions that you can set up for each of your lines. In this case, I want to group my project types, but you'll notice for my project number, the one that's counting, I use the word count. So again, this is something you're going to definitely want to play with and kind of go through and select different ones, run your report, and then you'll be able to see how it's ran. Now, if I undo this and I go apply changes, hit search, well, I would have to memorize it. Let me memorize. Oops. Now, when I open up my caret, there I go. I lost my count field, and now it's showing me every single line in just a random order. So again, you can kind of see how it works better when you select the group rows together option. Okay, so again, just grouping those rows together is always a good thing. All right, and this is also what it's a major difference between a listing screen versus a custom data set. The other listing screens don't have this ability to do that. All right, so I wanted to show you this pivot table. So I'm going to click into here. When you start your pivot table, it's going to list all of your fields. So you're going to check mark each one of these boxes. You're going to click on or hover over these dots, and then this allows you to drag and drop where you want these listed. Now, these filters, I'm going to mention this to you because it's very important. These filters do not work with the pivot table. Neither does this one here. The filters that this is using are the report filters. So I get that question asked a lot. Well, my filters aren't working. Well, you're right. These filters don't work. You have to use the report filters in order for them to be working right. Then down here, we do have this little arrow. This just gives you the ability to sort ascending or descending. And then down below, these values here, if you click onto the little caret, you do have these other conditions that you can set up, but what I'm more interested in is clicking into the more button. And now I can come in here and change how I want that field to look from the front end. I need to shorten up that field. I don't want it to be so long. I hit OK. And now when I go to run the report, this is going to show up as abbreviated versus the full blown out name. Okay, so let's go in and let's go ahead and apply changes. We're going to hit search. And then let's go to our pivot table, give it and hit search again. Okay, there we go. So right now, when you run your report for the first time, it is using this far left icon. It's a table view. I'm going to show you some of the different options that you can select, but here we have all of my client names. We have each of my project types, and then I can see the total budgets, the actuals, and remaining under each one of these. Okay, you can you can create grouping option or subtotals and grand totals if you need to. But what I wanted to show you is this icon here. We have column views, so you guys can change the different views here. I can go into a bar view. So you're going to decide what looks good to you and then just use that. Here's a line view, and I'll go through a few of these. We have an area view, and then we have scatter. Scatter is kind of hard to see, but if you hover over the little dots, then you can see, the total budgeted hours, what type of project type it was, and of course, who that person was, right? So again, this is going to be something you guys are going to play with. If you need to export it out, then you're going to click into here, and then you can send it out as a PNG, JPEG, or CFG. Now, these do change based on the type of report you're generating. I think the other two are PDF and Excel. So what we have here is all we have. This is how you would export it out. Okay. Here's those subtotals that I was telling you about. I want to show subtotals. Over here, I want to show grand totals, so you guys can turn those on and off. So let me go back into my table view. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. Here's those grand totals. Oops, I didn't like that. Here it is. So here I have grand totals for every single project type. And of course, you can also scroll to the right, and then you'd see the other totals. I'll show you another one in just a second. Okay, so this is just one example of a pivot table. This is more of a high level. I'm going to show you another one now, which is a more detailed level report. So let's go ahead and close that. It does look like I have a few questions, so I will stop here before I go into the detailed one, just to see what we got here. Let's see. Okay, so I have a question here. It says, why do some reports appear in views and some do not? The views are for, when you guys first start signed up with Workamajig, we have reports already created for you. They tend to be easier to use. You're not creating them from scratch. So the data sets in the report center, we do have standard reports in there, but we also give you the ability to set up custom data sets, or use the custom data sets to create those specialized reports with calculations and all kinds of things. So the views is just a simpler review way to create reports. So that's why I started there, because you can still create custom reports there. How do we know which are high level reports? Are they indicated as such? No, it's basically the way you're going to find out is when you go in and create the report, it's the fields that are available. So what I mean by that is this report here is looking at project summary data. I couldn't ask to pull out time entries if this is at a summary level. So usually if it has summary, then that kind of is an indicator that it's going to be a high level report. But detailed ones, they're going to be like time transactions, and also read the descriptions of each of those data sets. That will also tell you, it'll give you more information on what's really high level and what's not. Okay, and I'm going to actually show you one right now where there is a detailed level. So this one is my billable versus non-billable. This is going to be actual hours worked with billable and non-billable hours. So once I click into that, hold on, let me close this little Q&A box. I put in a description so that whoever opens up my report, they can see what I'm going to be able to see in this report. Now, I forgot to show you this before. So if you guys have a date filter in here, you can actually click into this little calendar. And if I needed to change the month, I can click in once on the thing, on the calendar name, and then change the month that I'm looking at. The other way that you can use this is if you click on the calendar name again, these carets move year to year. So maybe I wanted to start this in December of, December 31st. I want it to go through August. And then of course I could go ahead and hit search. Okay. Now this report here, what I've done is you're looking at every user by service that is going to be non-billable, billable, and the totals grouped by month. Now you're going to notice here that I do have a 01 representing the calendar order. And I'm going to show you the difference between filters if you use the wrong one. Okay, so I needed this to be in a calendar view versus just random months that don't make any sense. All right, so if I come into this edit, I'm using date worked month formatted. Anything that says formatted typically means that it's like more of a calendar view. So if I come in here, there's also another one that's called date worked month. Okay. A lot of people pick this one, which isn't really a good one to use, and I'll show you why. So if I delete my date worked formatted, I apply changes and I hit search, I have now just grouped everything, yes, by month, but it's now in alphabetical order. I can't talk right now. Sorry. So again, most people aren't going to want to see this report in alpha order. They're going to want to use, again, they're going to want to use that date worked formatted instead. And then of course I apply changes, I hit search, and now I'm back to where I was. So in this one, I do want to show you the pivot table. Let's go in here and let's hit search. Okay, so in this report, you'll notice that I have, well, let's, yeah, I think this is fine. So here you have all of your users, you have your non-billable hours, your billable hours, and your total hours. All right. So again, you guys can mess around with these pivot tables if you want. You're going to click into the edit and then decide, well, how do you want this to work? Well, maybe this one needs to have that date work formatted. And now I'm going to bring this up to the columns. Now I want you to see the difference. When you add your columns here, all the values are going to show up underneath the column. So now look what happens when we run this report. I can now see every month. I can see all three of my fields underneath every single month. So this tends to be a better view. Again, if you don't like the grid view, use a pivot table. It'll look a little prettier. And it might make more sense for people to be able to see it this way. You'll notice here, I also have my grand total down here again. So again, you guys can mess around with the subtotals if you'd like. All right. So this is a detailed report. So again, you can get down to the actual time entries themselves and the task, the project, the task, the hours. So again, it's more detailed than the other report that I showed you earlier. All right. The last report that I wanted to show you was this client billings by month. Earlier in the beginning, I showed you that we had these imported custom reports. If you come back in here, go to pre-made, the one I'm showing you is this one. Okay, so to add this to your system, you're going to go into the main menu. You're going to go into admin manager, import data, and you're going to type in the word view. Once you select view, you're going to select the file. You're going to grab it from your desktop. You're going to display the file and add it to your view. You're going to refresh, and then it will show up in your report center. Okay, so going back into our report center, once it's downloaded, this is what it's going to look like. So here you can see the client name, you can see the month that I invoiced and the amount that was actually billed. So this here is just a very simple report, but I'm going to show you how to create that pivot table from scratch. So here, let's go to the pivot table. I select my options, right? And down here, they're going to show up underneath your values. So here, this is where you're going to want to drag and drop where you want them to show up. So here I've added my three columns, or excuse me, my columns, and I put them in all three areas. And then of course I can go ahead and apply changes and I can hit search. And then I'm going to go into pivot. And there we go. So now I have all of my clients and I've had it split up by month. And again, this may be a better view to look at this information. So this is just another example of how you can create a pivot table from scratch. I am going to show you something that I also forgot to show you, and that's the calculated group. So let me start out with the grid here. And we're going to go into edit. So we have this other calculated field that is only available in our data sets. You're going to click create a calculated group. And what this does is it actually helps with the clutter of stair stepping. If I'll show you the report, what I mean by stair stepping. It's when you have 3 or 4 grouping options and you're seeing one per line. This is a way for you to combine them and just create one level, right? So in this case, let's just call this project full name. And this one's going to be a text. And let's do project number. Oops. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my plus sign. I'm going to do a pound, space, dash, space, pound again, and then I'm going to type in project name. Oh, there it is. Now on this one, you want to keep the plus sign. So here, I'm just going to pull it in, remove those spaces, and then I'm going to go ahead and save. I'm going to apply changes, and then I'm going to hit search, and there we go. I just combined 2 different fields and created one. Okay, so again, it's going to probably change the way this report runs, but I'm just giving you an example of what you can do with this. Another one that I see people use is we can do, let's do, you can see client, well, let's do client name. So let's do this again. And we want to do pound. And then maybe you want to bring in a contact, right? Maybe you want to see the name and the contact. So here I can say contact name. We're going to remove those spaces again. Save. Apply changes, hit search, and there we go. So now I've on one line, I've added that client name and who my contact is for that client. So those are just 2 simple calculated grouping options that you guys can set up for yourself. And what's great about this too is, let's say you didn't like this. As long as you don't memorize, you can close out of the report, come back in, and it's going to be as though you had never even done it. Okay, so the key is, if you do want this saved, make sure you memorize often. If not, you can just play around with it until you get it exactly the way you want. And then of course you can go ahead and memorize. Okay, so I'm going to close out of this really quick and come back in. The other thing that I wanted to show you, which is going to be the last thing, is you have the ability to schedule a report. Let's say you created a report for your project managers and you want to give it to them every single month, right? At the end of the month. So here I can schedule this report. Now, you have to set up all of your filters and run it first. Then what you're going to do is come in here and create the schedule. When you click into the pencil, you can change the report name. You can decide how many days to keep it. How are you going to export it out? Is it going to be PDF, Excel? Then you're going to say, how often are they going to get it? Maybe they're only going to get it monthly. And of course, we give you the ability to enter in a end date. So in this case, I'm going to say, I want this to run forever until I'm sick of it and I decide to delete it. Once you set up these options, you would click save. Then over here to the right, this is where you decide who you're going to email it to. So right now I'm on my staff. I could go ahead and set this up, or I could even maybe set it up for my team if I wanted to. I could just say, yep, I'm going to send all these 3, as I can do a select all and just grab them all in one shot. Okay, so again, you're going to play with these filter options, pick who you want this to be emailed to, and then it'll be based on the date that you start it. Okay, so that's how you do a scheduled report. It looks like there are a few more questions, so I'll go ahead and look at those. Let's see. Is there a way to save as a report? Say I build a customer report, then I want to make a lot more that are similar with just one small change. Do I have to build everyone from scratch if I want them all memorized? No, that's where you have the ability to copy. So let's say you get that first report down, it looks good, and I'm going to show you that again. I like this report, but maybe I want to run this by account manager, right? So I set it up. I'm going to go into edit, more, copy this view, yes. And now I'm looking at a copy. This is where I tell you, you want to make sure that you go and edit, and you want to make sure right away you change the report name, apply changes and memorize. That way you're saving this report. Because again, if you forget to apply changes and memorize, it's only temporary. And then you come back out. If you close out of this and come back in, it's not going to be there, right? So hopefully that answered your question. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions. Can you subgroup your reports within your favorites, AP, AR? I would think you should be able to favorite those. Let's go take a quick look. So if I come into my APs, yep, you can favorite them. You can just click in, hover over them, click your star. So yes, you can create those and put those in your favorites. Can you say what formatted usually means again under the field description? Formatted, that formatted tends to follow that calendar, like January is 1, February is 2. That it helps with the way it's going to sort, or it's going to sort itself. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's see what else. Unfortunately, oh, let's say. Oh, okay. This this one is more personalized. Ruth, I would suggest you send your question in to support@workamajig.com, and then we can work, then they can answer your question in regards to the reporting, okay? And that holds true with any of you. If you guys want to get more customized or more training on this, then you can always reach out to your support, your account person, and just email support@workamajig.com. Oh, there is one last question. Did you say that you don't have a cheat sheet? Yes, I did say that. So we don't have a cheat sheet for you. I do recommend that if you guys have reports that we've done for you in the past, just click into them. So here's another one that I created. These are the formulas. So if you guys have reports that we've done for you, you guys click into these calculator icons, copy these. These are formulas. So if you needed to change something out, you could. You know, again, maybe you don't want date worked month, maybe you want date worked week. You're simply just, you know, changing the field, but the formula still will work. Okay. So again, I do recommend you guys create your own cheat sheets from custom reports that we've built for you in the past. All right. All right. That is about everything. So thank you guys for joining our webinar. Hopefully you understood everything and I wasn't going too fast. This will be available in probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 days. Just check the help guide, and then yeah, you're good to go. So thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.